KoitCast.
Hi, Paul, and welcome back to KoitCast.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you ever so much for coming on. Last time you were on with Dr. Raymond Moody, and this time I wanted to get deeper into the consciousness side of things with you and your documentary work and stuff. So hence why you're here. So let's jump straight in. I was asked a long time ago to speak to you about your Psychomantium. It's possibly Grant Cameron that nudged me. I genuinely can't remember. Could you tell us
Yeah.
what the Psychomantium is and what it's for?
Well, a lot of things that Raymond Moody comes up with, he's been accused of being nuts, like he crossed the line and he's gone crazy. Okay. And this was one of them, the Psychomantium was. He was reading, as he does often, about ancient Greece. And the Greeks had these caves that they called psychomantiums. And people would go in, they would essentially desensitize by spending days in there sometimes less, but they would spend days in these caves. And then they would go into a big room where these priests had set up a reflective surface using first water, and then they would pour olive oil over it, and it would be kind of steaming. It'd be a steaming flat cauldron of a mirror, actually.
Hmm.
And they could gaze into the mirror. They would gaze into the clear depth that came up, and they could ask it questions, or they could try to see departed loved ones, or they could look for lost items. As Raymond says, they were looking for their car keys, but uh, and they would sometimes see a reflection of their lost loved one. And other times they would even talk about their loved one coming out of this reflective service and surface and speaking to them in a make a three-dimensional appearance. So he decided to try it, and he studied their procedures, and a lot of it had to do with relaxing as much as most people can't relax very well, but they would relax as much as he could get them to relax. Uh, he would spend time talking to them about a departed loved one that they maybe wanted to see. And then they would go into this chamber that he had created called the Psychomantium. And the one he created was a mirror. Uh, it was a completely black room, completely dark room. And it had in it like a 20-watt bulb or something. It was very, very faint light. And in front of them, they would have the mirror, and the mirror would be slightly tilted upward. So all they would get would be no reflection of themselves, but they would get a reflection of the background, which really turned into a very clear depth. And he would have people go in and they would then uh, think about the loved one they wanted to see. So right before they went in, they would maybe go through photographs of the loved one. They would talk to Raymond about uh, about what this person was like and why they missed them and their level of grief. And then they would get into the psychomantium and gaze into the mirror. And almost every time he did it in the early days, he had 20 subjects in the beginning, uh, they would see the loved one they wanted to see, and they would be able to communicate with them on some level. Sometimes they would just see the person, and other times the person would communicate with them, but their lips wouldn't move. They would have like a non-verbal communication. And then other times, on the extreme cases, people actually came out of the mirror and would sit with them in the room. And and then that would go on for whatever time it took. Sometimes they didn't appear in the psychomantium, and the person would leave disappointed. They would go back to the hotel they were staying at, because Raymond lives at the time lived kind of in remote Alabama, and they would stay. They'd had to drive in and spend the night, and they would be in the hotel, and the person they wanted to see would then come to them in the hotel. We were talking about ghosts before we started up, and I think that's an appropriate conversation in this case, is that they would come up in some kind of a ghostly image, but not a frightening image.
Hmm.
And the case studies from that are very interesting. There was one woman whose son had died of AIDS, and she spent a lot of time with Raymond in his psychomantium. Nothing happened. And when she got back to the hotel room that night, he walked into the room and appeared at the foot of her bed and spoke to her. And she got out of bed, and he was still there. She got out of bed, walked over and asked if she could touch him, and he hugged her, and she
And she
felt
felt
it,
it.
and she
Wow.
felt it. And that has happened more than once. That's happened quite a few times. Um, so Raymond started to take this very seriously, and I thought he was nuts. I thought he had crossed the line as well, but I wanted to stick with it to see what happened. And I became very interested in it. I went into the Psychomantium myself, and I had an experience with my father where I was gazing in the window, and my father suddenly appeared. It was very weird. He was in a very dark background. He appeared at the end of a pier, which we were never at the end of a pier in our whole lives.
It's weird, isn't
And
it? So he brought that
yeah,
background scene with him.
yeah, and it emerged from the mirror, and I carried on a brief communication. No lips moved, but it was just a communication that he was fine. Uh, I just had the essence that he was fine. I had that sense, and it probably lasted less than a minute, and then he disappeared. Not a frightening time, very interesting. Um, so Raymond started to collect case studies. He started to bring case studies to the Psychomantium, and I always wanted to put a camera inside the Psychomantium, unbeknownst
Understandable,
to the
yeah, yeah.
person. Yeah, because so many people were talking about these people leaving the mirror and sitting with them. And he wouldn't do that. He felt like it was a violation of their privacy. But we had one woman who came from Argentina, and she was very wealthy. She flew in on a private jet, and she wanted to see her daughter, who had died of cancer at Duke University Hospital. And she had died, I think, 90 days before she came to try to see her. She came with her sister, and they flew in. She was very demanding, as many wealthy people are, and she wanted to go right into the psychomantium, and she didn't want to go through any of the facilitation that goes on. And so he said, okay. So he let her go in. She sat there for a long time, well over an hour, and saw nothing. But and she was disappointed. She said, I'll come back tomorrow. Meanwhile, her and her sister went back to the hotel. This was at 3:30 in the afternoon. And they were sitting on their respective beds talking about the process and talking about the daughter and things like that. And suddenly what appeared in the room were three orbs. They just looked like very clear beach balls. And they moved around the room. Luckily, the sister had the wherewithal to take some photos. She took three photos of them. And some people aren't very really crazy with their iPhones. I would have taken 300, but
Yeah, just have it on speed shot. Yeah, no.
exactly. But she got these three photos, and uh, the woman, her sister, kind of went into a trance state, it seems, and had one floated in front of her, and she was communicating with this sphere, this orb. And she said that she could see her daughter in the orb. Her sister couldn't. And she communicated with her daughter, was relieved to find that she was fine, that she was happy where she was, and, I'll see you later, Mom. And that was it. Uh, that to me became really objective proof that something had taken place. The other ones are, subjective. They could be passed off as being waking dreams and on and on. And I'm sure sometimes they were. But this went beyond that to actually be a visual experience.
And because of the photos. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of people with photographs of orbs will say they don't exist. It's just dust particles or reflections off the camera. These are different photos to you. Have you seen standard dust particle ones?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen those. Did I send you the photos?
I haven't seen them, no, but if you can, that'd be great. I'll put them up on screen.
I'll
I'll do
do
it
that. You
after.
can. Okay, good. I'll do that.
Yeah,
I'll
I'll edit
send
them
that.
in.
I thought I had. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Uh, it's very impressive. And yeah, the other orbs, I mean, I agree. Many of them are dust, seem to be dust particles. Having been around photography for,
Yeah.
50 years, I mean, I'm aware of what's a fake dust particle and what isn't. And sometimes they're very orbish looking.
Hmm.
Uh, so I really don't, I can't make much comment about it without seeing the actual photograph. But yeah, yeah, I think that's a real deal. It certainly was with the Psychomantium. The interesting thing was he was there's a lot of interesting things. He number one went on Oprah, which is was a big TV show here, and she brought on a an Air Force colonel who went through the Psychomantium, and she brought on it was a woman that was the Air Force colonel, and then she brought on this man. I forget what he did, but they did the Psychomantium right before the program. She took them to Alabama and ran them through the whole Psychomantium process. And they both experienced, uh, really excellent Psychomantium images. The woman had her mother come out of the mirror and speak to her. Oprah said, "People are going to think you've gone nuts, Raymond," and then they did. I mean, he was very criticized by the whole near-death experience community. And of course, he was criticized by religious people who thought he was conjuring the devil. And they always think you're conjuring the devil or near-death experiences are the work of Satan until they have one, and then they see hey, it's my dead mom, and it's a real deal. And so then they start to believe differently. And but some people believed it. I mean, some psychological groups decided to research it. And the people who have done the most research on it is the transpersonal research that has been done by the Institute for Transpersonal Psychology. And they've done incredible research on it, where they've set up their own psychomantiums and they've run some of the research, they've run, 50 or 60 people through, uh, and they've now approved it as a type of therapy for grief and other issues, parental issues, child abuse issues, things like that. Sometimes these things aren't so pleasant because they do bring up incidents of child abuse.
Well, that's it.
Uh,
You're confronting your past. That
yeah.
transpersonal study, did they put a camera in there to prove anything, or did they again leave it out?
Oh, no, they didn't.
Oh, that
Uh,
needs to be done, doesn't it?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I was really thrilled when this woman took some pictures. So I think what we need to do down the line is get the authorization from people to film it
Yeah, you'll
and
get
see
you
what
get you
comes
get
up.
a, you know, there are going to be some people that don't want to do it and they'll sign away. I know I'm not doing that. But there's going to be loads of people that would volunteer to do that in the aid of
Yeah,
science or
absolutely.
whatever. Essentially,
Sure.
it's then what everyone was after, inventing a telephone to the dead.
That's
That's
it.
what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's I hate to make it I hate to use that phrase because that's definitely what it is. And that was researched a lot and found to be phony. But this is interesting. It was really interesting that Raymond did this. And he hasn't done it much anymore. Although it took so much time for him that when he first started doing it, he would take all day with the person and they would spend time together. Raymond's such a wonderful guy and he's has such a great voice and he's a very open thinker. And so it's would be fun to go over your whole life with him, and just talk to him about, the photos you have of your parents and your thoughts about your parents and things like that. But it wore him out. He could only do one patient a day. And that would take all day. And then he couldn't do anything the next day as far as patients because he didn't feel like he could deliver what he had with the first patients. So since then, other people have come along and have the transpersonal psychologists, for one thing, have shortened the process.
Good.
And well, one of the things they've done is they've I'm going to say created, but they have black mirrors, they call them, and that's what they are. They
Well,
look
that's
like
what these
onyx.
things are, isn't it? That's what phones are.
Well, that's why I was just going to say, take a look
Yeah.
in this, and you've got one.
Mm.
You know, you can kind of look right into it until it brings. Um, but if you look into a dark mirror and you let your mind kind of go and say to yourself, and it's important to say to yourself, I might not see the the departed loved one I want to. I might not even see a departed loved one. But just open your mind, try to relax, and you'll be dealing with something. If it's some issue you have in your life that doesn't involve a departed loved one, or you may actually see, Uncle Joe, who's been dead for 20 years. And I've seen that done at the Omega Institute. And what they did was they brought in like 20 people sign up to do it. And it's a room that's very much like the rooms we're in right now. It can be that informal. And they had these mirrors that looked like onyx, but they weren't, and they were just polished something. And they would just gaze into the mirror. And it was interesting to do it as a group because you would think that would slow down the process, so the process wouldn't happen because you're in there with the group. But there's something about being in there with the group that wants to be there and wants to see something that makes it easier to relax.
It's like the
And these
power of
people did.
merged consciousness, isn't it? You're all intended.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you can feel the vibes when you're in a negative room and you can feel the vibes in a positive room. And they would openly talk about what they had seen. So out of the 20 people in the class I was in, uh, there were at least five who saw departed loved ones. That's 25%, under just different conditions, not really
Mm.
deeply controlled. And other people they would talk about their family problems now with their own children or with themselves. Uh, and then other people just got extremely relaxed. So, uh,
Either way, it's a win-win, isn't it? Now, a question for
yeah.
you then. If you've been in there once and had that positive experience with seeing your dad, why wouldn't you be in there all the time or more often than you perhaps should do to, like an addictive sort of thing?
Well, I think that's a great question. And we have in our latest book, Proof of Life After Life, we have a section on how to build your own psychomantium. So you can do that very thing. Uh, I always think of it as a way to contact parents, but I didn't have that many issues with my parents. I'm one of the lucky ones. Uh, Other people have endless issues, but
Well, does it
you
have
know,
to be an issues thing though? Surely you could go in and just
not really. It's
converse.
stronger if it's issues, but you could just
Okay.
come in to say hi.
So then what does
Uh,
that tell you? Does that tell you if it's stronger with people with issues, actually it's the reflection of the person themselves, so it's giving it more power. If they have more issues, there's more power in the
well, yeah,
web.
but they get answers from their parents. So a lot of people blame their parents for virtually everything. And uh,
Yeah.
and
It's the way,
and
isn't
so this
it?
would, this would sort of take some of the onus off of that. It's like you go to a psychologist and he talks to you about your problems. And if your problems relate to your family, that's okay. But he never then talks to the family,
Correct.
so
It's a
he's only
reflection
getting
of
a
you. Yeah.
one-sided story. So
Mm.
what this provides is maybe a reflection of the entire story.
Yeah.
Why don't I do it more often? That's a very interesting question. I never really wanted to, but as of late, since the whole orb issue and everything else, I really wanted to do it. And as I get older, oddly enough, I feel more of a need for my parents. I thought it would be earlier on when they died, but it's not. You want their counsel.
Well, one of my questions when you were initially talking about it and you had your experience, especially with your like need for these scientific experiments where you could take photos in there, or other instruments to capture whatever, why wouldn't you create one and then invite people in so you run the study?
I absolutely should. And we've talked about it a lot. I mean, I've talked to Daniel Brinkley a lot and
Cool.
other people about starting this. And you know what? I don't know why we're not doing it. In all honesty, I don't know why. So if someone who's listening wants to get a hold of me and, advance this process, I would be glad to do it. Uh, Raymond he just got worn out from
Well,
doing
that's
it
because
because
he's putting too much into it. You've got to, yeah.
he was
It's like
putting
with
too much
mediums,
into
isn't
it.
it? They can't do it all the time because it runs their energy down. So yeah,
Right.
you can't do that.
And I think, over the years now, he's realized that it doesn't take as much effort as he thought it did. I mean, the Greeks, it was sometimes they would literally spend weeks in these caves, uh, trying to get totally desensitized so they could then, there's this whole theory about connection with the other side, paranormal phenomena, things like that, that involves the filter that your brain, we get so many images and so much talk and so many images just all around us all day, 25, 30,000 different, that our brain has to have a filter in it. And this filter filters out a lot of things that could come to us if we didn't have the filter. So there are some okay, I'll go a little further with this.
Good.
There are some neurotransmitters that are thought to be filters. Serotonin is one. There's GABA, and then there's three or four other common neurotransmitters. And what those do, in addition to many other things, is they focus you down. So instead of being very unfocused about your environment or other things, they will help you focus on a particular subject. Some people can do that naturally. Some people, artistic people is a good example, tend to have a very broad focus, which means they're willing to pull other things into their personal conversation. Um, and there's a thought that these neurotransmitters filter out a lot of reality, and that's a given. I mean, when we're trying to focus on reading a book, or we're trying to focus on doing a podcast, things like that, uh, you are more focused, and you're more focused largely because of these neurotransmitters. Uh, there are sometimes you get a release of a neurotransmitter, which in the case is a near-death experience, by the way. Uh, People will have a release of neurotransmitters that then open them up. And and some people say that, well, that's what a near-death experience is. It's just a very powerful release of neurotransmitters at the point of death. That the body it either gets frightened and releases these. That's one way. Or as your body starts to relax into death, you get a release, and it's called it's called the Lazarus syndrome, where sometimes you have a person who is essentially brain dead, who has been declared brain dead, and they come back. And it's a form of self-resuscitation where your organs and things will release uh, neurotransmitters. And rather than dying, a person will self-resuscitate. It's
That's
also
cool.
known,
Yeah.
it's known as terminal lucidity, where people are on the verge of dying, or actually, some have actually been considered brain dead and they've come back.
So,
And
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 ultimately, what all this is release the crap around you, and then you'll be
right,
able to contact more that is actually around us that we don't normally focus on or hear. Like being in a
okay,
crowded room, and I can focus just on your conversation and tune out all the crap in the background. Do you know what I mean?
yes. And that
It's exactly
example
that.
is used a lot, but that's a very good example
Mm.
of which you've been there. You've been to cocktail parties, and you're
Yeah, but
talking to someone
no, I'm
here,
not
but you
drinking the
really
cocktails though. They're gross.
you really want to hear the guy over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're stuck in the crap conversation with somebody talking about
Yeah,
cars or
right.
whatever.
Yeah, that's when you go to the restroom.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Sorry, yeah, I gotta go. Um,
and restart.
I've heard of the Psychomantium actually before, and I can't remember if it was the name given by the chap, but you know the famous medium Tyler Henry. Does that name ring a bell?
Not at all.
Oh, okay, he's on Netflix. He did a series, but I think he did the Psychomantium. But that just reminded me of that. But
Yeah,
also, obviously, what we're doing here is essentially bringing back old technology
right.
into the current, just like obviously the ancient Greeks, but then the native Indians did similar rituals, essentially go into
Sure.
sensory deprivation, and people used to do fire gazing. It's all the same thing,
Right.
presumably.
It is, yeah. And people still, if you light up a campfire, everyone's gazing at it.
Yeah,
It's
it's so
sort of
mesmerizing, isn't
remarkable.
it?
It is mesmerizing. Fire
Yeah.
is mesmerizing. And they'll gaze into it. Yeah, so it's a primitive event, you know.
The ones where in the Psychomantium people come out of the mirror,
Yeah.
that is so enticing and but also incredibly odd at the same time, isn't it? Because why would they need to come out of the mirror? Like the ones that could just stand by the side, as an example, they don't have to come out of the mirror.
No, but for whatever reason they do. Maybe it's a perceptual issue with the person who is seeing it, or maybe it is actually coming out of the mirror. People that say they actually come out of the mirror. So, until we do some kind of a study like this, uh, you kind of have to take people's word for it, because that's all we have. But if you look into some of the ghost research, and just by virtue of having mirrors in a room, people will see ghosts. They might see departed loved ones.
Have
Uh,
you ever sat in front of a mirror and really looked at your own eyes for quite some time? Because it gets quite disconcerting after a little bit.
I think it's pretty creepy. I mean, I'm a pretty
Yeah.
creepy guy when I do that.
The
So,
eyes of a killer, yeah.
because you see eyes in many different ways then, and I've thought about actually doing it when I'm really angry and then just force myself to stare into a mirror, or when I'm really happy and force myself to stare into a mirror. I know actors and actresses do that because there's so many who have the ability to convey just through the glint of their eyes. So yeah, they're big mirror freaks.
That also begs the question then, by doing that, perhaps do they bring something from the mirror into themselves so that they become a better actor? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I'm sure they do. Yeah, because they
Mm,
get you get muscle memory at that point. You start to realize, well, if my eyes feel this way from a glance one way or the other, then I'm going to look this way or that.
mm.
And because so much of camera work in movies is close. They expect people to be able to convey all kinds of things just from a glance.
Agreed. Now that is creepy what you said about. I don't think I've done it going in there like being uber angry or uber smiley looking in the mirror. I've just
Yeah,
stone faced, looking at it just to wonder what's there. Can you see behind the eyes, which is what people talk
yeah.
about.
Well, as soon as this is over, I'm going to go in
Yeah, and I'm going to
and
as well.
stare in the mirror. Yeah.
Put
So,
a photo, put a camera in there as well, and just take some photos in
yeah,
case.
right,
That could be your own
right.
little thing. Um, Paul, I'm going to spread this out to a question I've written here because I was going to do this consciousness section after NDEs, but I've jumped
Okay,
ahead with this Psychomantium. But I'm going to ask the question anyway. The consciousness field, if you believe there is such a field with that in,
sure.
can you go into what you've learned across your time studying consciousness as to what you believe this field is?
Well, initially, when I first got involved with near-death experiences, uh, I was just brought on to essentially write a book with Raymond Moody because he was having trouble. He had a book contract with Bantam Publishing, which is no longer in existence, and uh, he was supposed to write a book about the last. It was after he wrote Life After Life, and it was supposed to be a book about the last 10 or 15 years of research that had been done, which was a lot less than I thought there would be. But and so that's what we did with The Light Beyond, is we looked at that research. So at that particular time, I had never really given any thought to near-death experiences. In fact, when my agent first contacted me and he said, I've got something. I was the executive editor of American Health magazine, which was a huge health magazine in the United States in the 80s. And my agent got a hold of me and he said, I've got this great project for you. I want you to co-author a book with Raymond Moody. And I said, who's that? And I had no idea who Raymond was. And Nat said, well, he's the guy who named and defined the near-death experience. I said, I don't know much about that. It's, people drown and they go into a tunnel. And he said, you know what? As the editor of a big magazine like American Health, because it was had a couple million at the time circulation, you really need to get smarter. And because he's a hard guy. And he said, you need to meet Raymond Moody and take a look at this field of study. So I went down to, Raymond was living in Georgia at the time. He's a hardcore Southerner. And I went there and he picked me up at the airport. We got along right away. We drove all the way out to his house, which is halfway across Georgia. And by the time I got to the house, I was thinking, well, maybe these things are for real. I mean, I never really thought they were really real events, because I had never, like I say, given any thought to them at all. And he introduced me to people who had near-death experiences. And he introduced me to doctors who had been around those people and could confirm that they had actually had out-of-body experiences in the operating room and then drifted around the hospital, other places. And I became a real believer in this separation of consciousness from the body. And so I'm fairly open-minded. So I started to really talk to a lot of people who had near-death experiences. One night when I got back home from Georgia, I live in Arizona, which is over by Los Angeles. And I went out to a movie with a bunch of friends and they said, what are you working on? And I told them what I was working on. And they said, oh, that's all bullshit, you know? And but not everyone said that. It was like five or six people at the table, and three or four of them said, that's all bullshit. So it was late at night. And I stood up in this restaurant. It was one of those all night restaurants, Denny's, they're called here. And and I said, there were like 25 people in the restaurant. I said, excuse me. And I'm lucky they didn't think I was robbing them. But and then I told them what I was working on. Do any of you have any experience with near-death experiences? And out of the 25 people there, 15 people said they had either had one, or their members of their family had had one, or they knew friends who had had them. And they told their stories. And at that point, I realized this is huge. If you can stand up in a Denny's at night and get, 15 people out of 20 or 25 to even talk to you about it. And uh, no one was saying you're nuts. To me, that seemed to be a real turning point for this kind of experience, because before life after life, it was not really well accepted. After life, and people started to realize, well, that when my grandmother said she was out of her body, I mean, she really was out of her body. Uh, you know, and so I realized it had been accepted by the public, and I became very interested in it. And even to this day, sometimes when I start talking about it with anybody, they've had an experience, not a near-death experience themselves, but they know somebody or they know members of their family. At the same time that I was writing The Light Beyond with Raymond, this was in 1990. I was also working on a book with a cardiologist on reversing heart disease. So this was an old cardiologist. He was at Case Western University in Cleveland, really good guy. And he said, well, what else are you working on in your life? And so I told him that I was working on a book about near-death experiences. And we were standing at a nurse's station in the hospital. And he said, I'm a cardiologist. I've resuscitated thousands of people, which of course isn't true, but it was probably hundreds, maybe 100. But he said, I've resuscitated thousands of people, and I've never heard a near-death experience from any of them. And then his beeper went off because we didn't have phones at that time, iPhones. And he said, I've got to answer this call. So he went off to his office around the corner. These nurses came over to the nurses station and they said, well, the reason Dr. Hellerstein has never uh, heard of a near-death experience from a patient is because he doesn't talk to his patients. He's too busy. And we talked to the patients, and they started telling me experiences they had heard. And and so I realized at that point it had penetrated that far into the hospital, and maybe not into the medical establishment itself. But now I get calls from doctors who want to talk to me about near-death experiences, who want to talk
Quality.
to me about their experiences. And actually, now that you mention it, I have one that I'm going to talk to about doing a psychomantium study with. He's
Lush.
a yeah, he's a retina specialist.
A redness.
So retina
Oh,
in your
retina. Oh, yeah.
retina, yeah. So he'd be perfect.
There's a book there, isn't there, for like doctors and nurses and people
Oh,
who work
yeah.
in, I don't know, hospice care or whatever. That I don't know if there is one out there, a book on this subject, but near death from the stories from the doctors and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. There is. But there's always room for more,
Yeah,
you
get
know.
one done, Paul. Get your
Yeah.
pen going.
Yeah, right.
Unless you write with a
'Cause
keyboard, I don't know.
I mean, I know when my father-in-law died, he was just a straight working class guy. And he had pancreatic cancer. And when he started to pass away, he was in bed for like 2 days before he died. And I went and I spent 2 nights with him, and I thought, well, he'll make it a couple more days. So I decided to go home, and our daughter went and stayed with him. She was very young at the time, 15 maybe. And she said in the middle of the night, he woke up and he started talking about this light on the wall and seeing his mother and seeing other family members. And it would have freaked her out if she hadn't been around me all this time, because I think she really was at the time was enjoying it, I suppose is the word, or she wasn't frightened by it. And he was he was talking to people from his childhood that were dead. And he was the last guy that I would have expected to have this happen. And it did. And there was no doctor around to talk to him about it, and then they probably wouldn't have talked about it anyway. I don't know. But so it's changed. I mean, that has all changed with the medical establishment. Now they're doing like tons of research on it.
And good, and so it should move. It's the same with like if you look at the UFO topic, more and more people are coming forward. More and
Oh,
more
I
people
know.
are coming up forward on the near death stuff. I know my granddad when he was dying also had a similar experience. He was seeing things in the room,
Yeah,
from what my mum and dad said. I wasn't there at the time, but yeah, so it's very common. And I think when we spoke last time, I think we estimated it out as something like 15 or 20% of people, in theory, will have reported an NDE.
right.
Will
In
know
one way or
somebody.
another.
Yeah, that's
They're
right.
saying now that 3% of the US population has had a near-death experience, which seems very high to me, but still, there you
Well,
go. It's
yeah, a
research.
massive number that you could draw on and take a lot of research from if people really looked at it. But I know it's not necessarily the scientist's issue; it's the people in the wild, isn't it? Like
Right.
yourself before you got into the topic. It was only
Yeah.
because you got deeper and deeper and deeper that you realize, oh, well, hold on, I was in the wrong. There is stuff here.
Right. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
what it's great now to permanent to be overheard in a conversation and have someone at another table say, well, excuse me, because they're just dying to talk about it.
Well, yeah, because
And
it's so interesting, and they got this secret that they
yeah,
want to get out, don't they?
yeah, right. Yeah, that's it. So,
Exactly that.
but those are still considered, they're still subjective experiences. Okay. And that's what has bothered me over the years is that they're subjective. So if you have a near-death experience, only you have had it. And you can't really confirm it beyond yourself. That would be subjective. But then there's what Raymond and I did with our that latest book, Proof of Life After Life, is we looked at this whole category of shared death experiences, which have been reported for literally hundreds of years. And and it's been seen as being consciousness leaving the body. It's been seen as uh, people telling stories at the bedside. Like they'll say, I hear music, and then everyone in the room starts to hear music. That's a common one. That's a shared death experience. And or there'll be a group image, vision actually, where people will see a departed loved one possibly coming back to receive that person. Um, and that's why I've done a lot of work on visions in general. And that's one of the projects I'm working on now in Egypt is about a visionary experience that occurred in a place called a Sut, where this vision of light, this flashing lights from the heavens. I have a photo of one. I'll send that to you as
Yeah,
well.
send that to me. I know we talked about this last time, and you said that
Yeah.
like raise the light and people that stepped in it had the visions. That's right, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
it was around a church, the Church of Saint, I guess it's Saint Mary or Saint George. Everything's usually Saint Mary, but I think it was the Church of Saint Mary or George. And it was in the middle of this town called Asut, which is in the middle of Egypt. And this light started up, boom, 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 big flashing lights at night. And it didn't happen once. It happened for 3.5 months. And it wasn't every day, but it would happen. It appeared to have happened at least once a week. And it would be a flashing light from the heavens. It would be a flashing light from the sky. They couldn't find the source of it. There were people who claimed to be healed by it, and uh, and then they were researched and found to be healed. And so there's documentation on some of these healings. And interestingly enough, the light, when people see a bright light during a near-death experience, that's one of the things they see during a near-death experience, is they have an encounter with a being of light. Sometimes they say that being is God. Sometimes it's Aunt Mary. Sometimes they can't describe it, but they think it's a being of light. But then they'll say it was just a field of light, but it had substance in it, and it was talking to me. And it will upload information to them that sometimes they can remember after an NDE, and sometimes they can't. It's been credited with healing people with serious diseases, uh, Hodgkin's disease, cancerous diseases, things like that. In the case of Asut, it was close to a cancer hospital, and there were people who claimed to have been healed, and they were shown to have been healed by this light, by exposure to this light. Or let's say that they were healed after they were exposed to the light, whether it's a direct thing from the light or not. And everyone's always looking at what is this light that people see, because it seems to have an incredible positive transformative effect.
Was it tapered up to a point, or was it just like a wide downward?
No, it was interesting. It was just I'll send you some video of that.
Oh, cool.
Uh,
Thank
and
you.
and it was just a big flash. It was like a generalized flash. And we researched. I went with a videographer. We went behind the churches and everything else, looking for possible places that they had, executed a fraud. But in fact, what then happened, because it was appearing for 3.5 months, off and on, people started coming from all over Africa and from all over Europe. A lot of Germans went. And so they were surrounding the church. I mean, there were flashing lights from either side, and it didn't appear to be fraud. And then people were high up in buildings and looking down. The guy who did the most photographic work was a doctor in a suit, and he went up on top of an apartment building. His friend owned this apartment building next door to the church, and he went up on top of it for like 3 months, and practically every night, and would video, when it would happen, he would videotape it. I'll send you some of that footage.
Yeah, that's cool. But where did it come from? Was it just there
Just,
or
it's up
an
there.
above?
I mean, it seemed to be from up there,
Ah,
up in the sky.
makes it more intriguing because it makes you then think, Was that from a UFO, or was it from an angel, or was it from another dimension or something?
Well, when you see the photo that I took, you'll wonder that about a UFO. That is for
Mm.
sure. And I had this. I it was in night. I went there recently twice. So in 2025, I've been there two times. But I was there in 20 years ago. 2000, I was there 2001, I think, is when that first started. And I got there after this flurry of visions, and I wanted to take a picture of the steeple of the church because it was happening kind of around this church. I hate to, well, I'm not religious, but it was happening
That's
around
okay.
this church, and I wanted to get a picture of this steeple. So I set my camera on a top of a police car that was shut off, and I had a really cool camera, a Nikon twistable lens, and I twisted the lens up to that and time exposure, hit the time exposure and stepped away. And the image that came out on the camera is one that you'll see. It's of this incredible orange light that comes down from, you'll see the source. It's an odd kind of source. I'm assuming that's a source, and it comes down directly over the steeple of the church. Next to it is that apartment building I was talking to you about, and it was pure. The apartment building is all totally white, and none of the orange light goes over that apartment building. I mean, it was very specific,
Mm.
and
Targeted.
you could tell from the light how specific it was. So I took a pic when I first took a picture of it in, I think it was 2021 or the year 2000. I think it was 2021. Uh, no, I'm sorry, it was 2001. Yeah,
Oh,
it's right
a lot
after
longer
9
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it was right after 9/11 because I went there right after 9/11 happened. And I took this picture and I immediately went back to American University in Cairo and talked to their people. They have an Apple graphics department, and they have all this at the time, this great Apple equipment. So they blew it up on a screen that was just huge, and they had their image experts come in and look at it. And they just pointed out all kinds of things that showed that it was direct light, but also showed that they couldn't really figure out where it was coming from. There's an area that it appears to be coming from, but it's really not definitive. So, they looked at it and I was good to get their opinion because they are scientists. And then the priest showed it. Then the priest in a suit got a hold of the photo and they printed thousands of postcards.
Oh yeah, like all churches do. Yeah.
And
Whoa.
and this
Yeah.
has the story of it on the side.
That's
But
quality.
and I didn't know they were going to do it. So I went back to a suit and like a year or so later, and I went into the square and there were all my photos that were all over. They had this postcard of all my
Did you
photos.
royalties, please? Come on.
Well, that's exactly what I did, jokingly, but they took it serious.
Mm.
And they had blown up big ones. I had one of them earlier, and they'd blown up big photos of it, and then the postcards. And so I said, I own that photo, and you never got my authorization to use it. And they got really these priests all got together, and they were right there, and they huddled, and they said, "Okay. Next time you come back, you can stay in our church for free."
That's nice.
So that was that. But I thought it was kind of funny. I wasn't
Well,
serious about it.
exactly. It doesn't. I don't know if you're like me, but I almost it wouldn't matter to me.
It didn't matter to me at all. In
Yeah,
fact, I
that's
liked
good.
it. I actually like it. And even now,
Yes,
you go
yes.
there now, and you go there now, and they're passing them out.
I was going to ask
Uh,
you if it's a sense of pride because that came from
oh,
you.
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
that's how I would take it
Yeah.
as well. I'm gonna. I know I'm conscious of time, but I got a shed load of questions. So what I'm going to do is try and rattle through as many near-death experience questions as possible before we
Okay.
enter the Koit zone and wrap up. So we've gone through what people primarily see through NDEs because you said it's like white light, they see a light being, etc., etc. Are there any reports of smells or hearing or anything else? Any other sensory data?
Interesting. Smells occasionally. The most heavenly smell they've ever smelled. That's a typical one. Uh, and that's something that's, by the way, something you hear a lot from people who have visions. Excuse me.
It's okay.
People have visionary experiences. They talk about the scent being so powerful and wonderful, and a scent they've never smelled before or since. Uh, so that points to a number of things. But yeah,
Sounds like it smells like my armpit. That's like a heavenly smell.
I think it's you could, that's another thing that's subjective.
Yeah, you're right. That is very
Exactly.
subjective. Take it with a pinch of salt. Um,
Yeah.
I won't go into life reviews because that's such a massive topic. It could take all
Mhm.
day on that one. But there was another one which was about the weight of a soul. Have you heard that? Is it 21 grams or whatever it's meant to
Yeah, it
be?
was nine grams,
9 grams.
21.
Sorry, that's it.
Yeah.
Any more done on that?
No, there hasn't been any more done on that. I think the main research was actually done here in Arizona, and it was done decades ago because a gold miner had found a large amount of gold, and he was also curious about the soul and afterlife. So in his will, he said, I'll give all my money to anyone who can prove uh, that there's a soul." And that set all these people off on different research paths. And one of them was the weight of the soul. And I don't remember how they exactly did it. Uh, it would be a very precise measure if they got it down to like 9 grams.
Hmm.
But I don't remember how they did it. They must have used a very precise scale and then let someone die on it. I
On
don't
it,
know.
exactly, because they'd have had to been there just before,
Yeah.
so we knew their exact weight then and then just after.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this research can't be done or it doesn't make sense. I don't think
Hmm.
most people are willing to admit that they're dying and want to lay on a scale. Uh,
Exactly. Not my dying wish, I don't think, to lie on
yeah,
a
really.
scale. You
The
also
thing about,
mentioned, sorry, go on.
oh, I wanted to mention the near death, the life reviews.
Okay.
I know you mentioned those earlier, but I'll keep it short. Um, we started looking at shared life reviews. And so, I could say, wow, I had a cardiac arrest, I had a life review. But if you're having a life review and someone else in the room picks it up, that's a shared death experience and the shared life review. And there are cases of that where people have been at the bedside of someone who's dying, and they will see that person's life review, but they'll see intimate moments uh, that took place that they had never, like if it's their child or something, that they had never talked to them about.
How did they
And then
see it?
the same way a person has a shared death experience, it's you sense it. You sense it, but you see it in your mind. It's like a vision in your mind.
So it's like
And so
projecting out from the dying person, so to speak.
apparently so. And we've had
Whoa.
people who have it helps if the person survives. Yeah, so if they're having a life review and then they survive, they're able to tell their life review, and then we're able to talk to the other person separately about the review they had. And so we've been able to match those up.
That's
Um,
incredible. I've not heard of
yeah,
shared life reviews before. Whoa. And they're
yeah.
actually seeing scenes fast from people's lives, like
They're
that
seeing
person.
spots from people's lives,
Jesus.
sensing them. They see it. They see it visually. I think, can hear the person speaking sometimes, but they'll see it visually and they'll know that this, and this happened.
That's
So it
weird because
must come to
I
them.
thought life reviews were meant to be some sort of personal thing from the lore where it was
Yeah,
this is where you did good, this is where you did bad, or this is how your actions or behavior negatively impacted that person,
yeah.
and then you feel that negativity or
You feel
whatever
the
it is.
negativity.
So
Yeah.
did that other person feel it as well?
No, not to my knowledge, not in what we've looked at now, but they do like they see a movie. I mean, but it's like remembering a movie is what it's like. So, you go to see a movie, and now today, if you start talking about Citizen Kane, you're kind of remembering that movie. And that's how it is with the shared death, with the shared life review.
Yeah, because essentially it is a movie. It's broadcast to them. But
Correct.
here's the point. Here's a question from that, which is, did they accidentally tune into it, or did that person dying broadcast it out so that person could see it?
So they accidentally happens.
Okay, so it's not an
It
intentional thing
accidentally
on
happens.
behalf of.
No, no, it's not something they prepped for.
Interesting.
No, it just happens, and that's how it is with a person who's nearly dies and has a shared death experience. They didn't prep for it; it just happened.
Yeah, wow. I love that. Another one that is quite a difficult question, but I'll ask it anyway. If the afterlife truly exists, and by extension reincarnation, etc., why
Mhm.
the need to be here and have our memories wiped?
I have no idea. I'm no. I'd have to tell you, I'm not afraid to say I don't know,
And I'm pleased for that.
and I don't know. And that's interesting. That's a question that's never really come up. However, there's a lot of people, I'm sure you dealt with several of them, who have hypnotic regressions, for instance, and their memories from past lives aren't wiped, that they remember past lives and very accurately.
I say
Uh,
white then. Let's just say there's a block then, isn't there? I imagine.
I guess you
Mm.
could put it that way. There's a guy who's done this work in Ireland, by the way. You should actually talk to him. D Derek O'Neill.
Oh, write that
Have
name
you ever
down.
spoken to Derek? I'll give you his number.
That'd be very
Uh,
kind. Or email if you've got it.
but yeah, he's a very interesting character.
Lush, thank you kindly.
Yeah.
Yes, I will definitely look into him. Last time you mentioned the green or grey mist seen leaving the bodies. Any more
Yeah,
on that?
that's interesting. Well, I actually run into a couple more doctors who have seen it, and well, nurses who have, but I haven't really dug in on the nurses yet. But I've had doctors say it, and it's so interesting to me when they say it because it's not like, hey, you won't believe what happened, but I mean, they just say, well, I saw this green mist come out, or I saw this mist come out. And in some cases, the mist was like it looked like the body, and other times it was just a mist that went up. And we have a few of these that have been witnessed by other people in the room.
I love it, but it also makes me ask the question, why grey or why green?
Well, maybe, there's stay tuned for other developments. There might be purple too. It might be
Well,
yellow.
that's the thing. But
Yeah,
if it did like fit into a color spectrum of grey green, let's just say
yeah,
that was the sum total. Why?
yeah. I don't
Unless
know.
that's the vibration of color, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a
Yeah,
good point. I don't know.
it's
I just
interesting
don't know.
either way. Um, Gifts coming back, like people who are suddenly ace at playing music or painting. We spoke about that last time.
Yeah, that's great.
Um, are there any stories of people that come back with extra passion for what we might call mundane things, such as being the best sewage worker? Or is it always creative outlets?
No, it's a lot of that would be attitudinal, and they come back with a much more positive attitude about life. They come back with a much more positive attitude about what they do. And because they see a big picture, uh, they realize that their place in this big picture is doing sewage work. And we all need that. So I mean they
Yeah.
see that as, yeah, they see themselves in a different light. They're more happy to be who they are. So in answer to your question, I think that answers it. But
So it doesn't
uh,
force everyone into creativity per se, it just gives you the best person of who you want to be, and that could be the best sewage worker.
correct, it doesn't force them into creativity.
Lush, thank you. Um, we spoke about you think the doctors and nurses are essentially turning in and looking at this more often than before. Um,
Yes,
will it ever form part of the standard medical practice, i.e., brought in as part of the process, or are we too
I
far
think
off
it.
that yet?
No, I think we are to a large extent. I mean, doctors are extremely busy, and in some situations more so than in others. But it depends on the hospital. So they don't. I don't know if they have time to talk about that, but they don't necessarily focus on it. So, for example, I ended up in the hospital a few years ago with some kind of an infection. And uh, well, this is a funny thing, but I was at the Mayo Clinic, and I had a doctor, just your basic white guy doctor, and yeah, he was great. Talked to me normally. What do you do for a living? I told him what I did. Okay, that's fine. Thanks. See you later. And then the next day, a different doctor came in, a Hindu. It's totally different, completely different view of what I do and what they know about death. And he sat there, he talked to me for a while about near-death experiences, about death in their culture, and he gave me 10 minutes
Quality.
about that subject. So a lot of it depends on the interest that the medical person has in it. Sometimes they completely miss an experience. They'll say, I mean, someone will come out and say, "Wow, I had this flash of light, and I got some information from it, and can't quite remember what it was." And the doctor will say, "Oh, that's great," and it doesn't even end up in the patient record.
Yeah, because he's too bloody busy, like you said
Yeah,
earlier,
it's
and
too
he's like,
busy.
whatever. He's too busy focusing on that paperwork, not that guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Which
did a
reminds me, actually, Paul, have
okay.
you seen a film called Code 3?
No,
It's brand new. It's about a paramedic, and
okay,
it's like a true to life experiences of what a paramedic goes through. It's hell worth watching. Watch that, and that's
really.
basically this subject. You'd love it. Anyway, I know that's an aside.
I'm
Um,
gonna write the code three.
Code 3, yeah, really good film. Definitely worth watching. Um,
Is it?
conscious-based
I'm
healing.
sorry. New
Go on,
film.
brand
New
new, yeah,
film.
yeah,
Okay, thanks.
yeah, really good. I think his name is Rainn Wilson, who's in it. That's the
Oh
actor.
yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah, really good film. Conscious-based healing. Last time you spoke about a chap who had an NDE, and the angels told him to look into this field of conscious-based
Yes,
healing. Are there any updates about him, i.e., what has he discovered since? Any
yes.
data or anything like that?
Well, that's funny because I just finished talking about a Hindu doctor, and this fellow, although not related to the
Hmm.
initial one I spoke about, uh, is a anesthesiologist from Bakersfield Heart Hospital, and uh, he had a near-death experience, really a very profound near-death experience. It had to do with sepsis and other things, and uh, he was told by the beings of light who came to see him, and they were Christian saints. Okay, which he said I couldn't believe it because I'm a Hindu and we have 5,000 gods, and I end up with the Christian saints. So but they told them you have to practice consciousness-based medicine. Okay, what's that? Well, you have to figure it out. That's what they told him. And so your question relates to, did he ever figure it out?
Hmm.
And what he decided to do is to make it addiction practice because he felt for one thing, he had an addiction problem, um, which if you're an anesthesiologist is a great place to be. Uh,
Hmm.
so,
Yeah, I want some of that
and
morphine again.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So, he had an addiction problem himself and decided that for him, that represented consciousness-based medicine. So he would then he does this now. He quit his job in Bakersfield, California, moved to Santa Cruz, which is on the ocean. And he has a clinic now where he deals with people who are addicts and teaches them about what he discovered from his near-death experience. Um, and he, it's easy to turn that into a parable or a metaphor, where you're told by angelic beings that you need to find what the problem is. You need to find it yourself. Because that, I think, is a large part of what addiction medicine is. At this point, going to AA is, for instance, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a process of discovering yourself and what makes you tick. So he does that, and he's using it in relation to addiction.
Does he is it more a therapy tool, or is he looking at scientifically from like data and hows and whys and stuff?
Well, he's using science, but I think most of it is, I don't know how scientists feel about psychologists, but most of it is like psychology research, I think.
Okay.
Uh, I'm sure he's using maybe some gabapentins now and things like that, using the actual medication. But I haven't talked to him about that, about using medication. But I know he's dealing with people on a addict level where he is counseling them. That I know.
Either way, whatever, he's doing quality work, isn't he? As
Yeah.
for his path now, essentially. And I
Oh
love
yeah.
the term path. Um, and speaking of paths and your creativity, you were drawn into books.
Right.
Is that way the best way for you to disseminate knowledge? Was that your plan or path?
When I started,
Yeah.
I could never decide what I wanted to do, but I wrote a lot, and one day I actually sold some work that I had done, and it was
Nice.
just something that simple. I thought, well, I can study a number of different things and write books, and I'm not stuck with just one thing in my career. And so that's really why I became a writer. And then I got doubly hooked on some things. Some things it's almost like it makes no sense. Like I became good friends with Hunter S. Thompson. I don't know if you know him,
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Fear and Loathing, and I wrote a biography of Hunter, and I became good friends with him. Wrote a biography with Hunter, and then moved on to Ken Kesey. Do you know who Kesey is?
That one I don't know. No.
He wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and there's a book about him called The Kool-Aid Acid Test. He introduced LSD into the American population through Stanford. He was a student at Stanford, and he signed up for some Army experiments. And he was taking LSD at the Veterans Hospital in Palo Alto. Loved it, but he didn't like the way they were doing the research. He said he would take LSD and then sit in a white room, and they would talk to him about what happened. How do you feel now? How do you feel now? So he stole a bottle of LSD and got it out into the student population at Stanford, and put together. And then he made it. He wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and sold it to Kirk Douglas. And so he got $50,000 from Kirk Douglas.
You're talking about the
And
screenplay, are we? Not the book, because I thought the book was written by a lady, wasn't it?
no, he wrote that book.
The book. Okay.
Ken Kesey did. And then he took his money and he bought an old International Harvester school bus. And he and a whole bunch of people piled onto the bus and drove to New York from San Francisco to see Timothy Leary. And LSD was legal at the time, so they took LSD all the way across the country. And I did a book about that called On the Bus. Uh,
They should make a
and
film about that one. That's a hell of
I
a
wish
film
they
potential.
would. This I keep selling rights to the book, and they don't ever make the film.
Swines. Can't you like? Is there
No.
never a clause that you can put in to say you must make it within 5 years or something, or do they
Well,
not do that on
then
purpose?
you get it back. So they'll give you a certain amount of money for 90 days, 90 days, and then after that, if they want to hang on to the movie rights, they have to pay you more, and
Gotcha.
then more, and then more, and then they either do it or they don't. So I did a book called Closer to the Light on children and near-death experiences, and I don't know if you know who Dick Clark was,
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
American Bandstand.
Nah,
No,
not
okay.
one
It
for
was one
me.
of those early music shows, but he kept rebuying the rights for 15 times, and
But
I
never did
finally said,
anything with it.
I said, what do you want? What are you doing this for? And he said, well, I have a friend in London, in England, named Dick Clark, and he did a short on children who were ill, and it won an Academy Award, and he wanted to do the same thing with near-death experiences. And so he wanted to use this book. So he said, I keep buying the rights to it for him. And nothing ever happened. So you should look
That's
up Dick Clark sometime, though.
I will. I'll do
It's,
it
it's,
straight after this because
it's
I'm
right
always
there.
interested in when people recommend names to me that I've not heard of.
Yeah.
Um, okay, last question. Oh no, two more questions in the Koit zone. Do
Okay.
you prefer writing or creating your documentaries?
Oh, lately I preferred creating documentaries. And the reason I switched over to them is I kind of have a a photographic background. I was a photo editor at a newspaper, and so I always love working with photos and studying how why they work and why they don't. And so I've always been interested in images. And then I got tired of writing. I get tired. I'm in a room alone. I mean, I can sit in this room alone for all day with me and my Ralph Steadman posters and Indian paintings and things like that. And it just got it wore me out. Mentally, I just didn't want to be alone all the time. So I started thinking about doing documentary films because I was editor of Runner's World magazine, and we did a film about running with we had Greta Weitz and John Walker and all these other people, Brendan Fraser in the film, and we did a running film, and it was fun doing it. So I kind of fell back on that, thinking I could do documentaries, and I've done a lot. I mean, I did one on Fritz Shoulder, who's an Indian artist. Uh, well, that's not in. That's from the Beijing Marathon,
I was going to say,
but
I thought you was going to say that was the running thing then, but yeah,
no, no, it's not. But I have a whole bunch. Anyway, Fritz Shoulder is like a famous Indian artist, and he lived close to us. And I went to him and I said, I want to do a documentary about you. And he said, okay. And I said, well, I need to raise some money to do it. And he called the people who had bought his paintings, and we had like $50,000 overnight.
nice.
And yeah, especially then it was a lot of money. Now it's kind of a lot of money, but and then we went all over the world, and I did this film with him, and uh, and it ended up on public TV, PBS, and it was like I thought, well, that was fun. So I decided to do another one, and the next one I did was I went to Egypt. I went to Egypt on to help someone make a movie just to see how it was done. And we were looking at the stone temples of the Nile. So we went all down the Nile photographing stone temples from pharaonic times. And out in the desert, on one of the stops, there were these three guys on camels, and they had, flowing robes. It was a classic scene, white
Was it
horses.
the three wise men?
Well, that's what I thought of because I
Yeah,
was
I was going to
there.
say.
We were on this production boat in Lake Nasser, and I saw them, and I thought, my mind just starts tripping. And I said, well, that's weird because, in the Bible it says Jesus was here, but there's nothing about him. And so we got to the next town, which was a town called Edfu. And I got off the boat and I started asking people, Muslims or Christians, uh, do you know Jesus was here in Egypt? And they would say, oh yeah, he stopped here, he stopped there. And I took a map and I started marking these stops. And over the course of a year or so, I got a lot of 30 some stops that people said he had made. And so then I went to the Pope, Pope Shenouda at the Coptic Christian Church in Egypt, and he said, "Oh yeah, we just researched that, and we developed a map." And this was in I went over in 2001 to write. Well, I went over in 2001, and he gave me the map, and so that he said that's what you should follow. So I wrote a book. I followed the map and wrote a book called Jesus in Egypt. And then not thinking I was going to do anything with it film wise, but then a producer showed up from uh, I guess not National Geographic. Anyway, a producer showed up from History Channel, and he said, you should turn that into a documentary. And he showed up because he wanted me to do something else, a treasure hunt on Nova Scotia. And he said, let's drop Nova Scotia and send you back to Egypt. So I put together a crew and went back to Egypt, and we spent 2 months following the trail of Jesus through Egypt, which goes from the border with Israel uh, all the way across through Cairo and then down the Nile. And that's been a really successful film.
So you
It's
get a lot
called,
out of your documentaries, essentially. So that's the new love.
oh yeah, I do. It's like, the carrot in front of a horse. Uh,
Yeah, lush.
I just keep getting pulled along by these ideas. But I mean, that's it. And I love doing it because it's active, and then I'm still writing books because of what I always did.
Yeah, because that's still in you. Yeah, so that's a creative
Yeah,
outlet.
sure.
Yeah, I have three
Yeah,
creative outlets myself, and then maybe you want to focus on my music as an example, but something always
yeah,
draws me back to the other one. So I completely get that. Now, the
yeah.
hardest question for you, and it's one I ask everyone, so don't think I'm just firing this one at you, but if you had to theorize about everything, and I mean everything,
Yeah.
all paranormal, near death, afterlife, ghosts, it all, how do you think the universe works? Told you
I
it's a hard
could
question.
just be snide and just say plain old physics, but
Yeah, you could be.
then you can carry that further and say it's plain old physics, but we just don't know everything about physics. And that is certainly endorsed by the quantum research that goes on, is that things are smaller than an atom, you know, and there's all kinds of physical laws that don't apply to the laws of physics.
I'm
So
going
you
to throw
can
you
do
something
that.
out here, though, Paul. I'm going to
Yeah.
say that's like saying it's maths and there's other maths I don't know. I want you to theorize or draw a plan in your mind of how the universe is layered. So let's just say we're here. Where do you think the afterlife sits in relation to us? Where do you think UFOs and aliens sit in relation to us? And ghosts and everything like that?
Oh, I think there's layers that we have no idea what they are. Absolutely. And occasionally they open up and we're treated to what happens under certain conditions. But to go further than that, I really can't do that. I
That's
mean,
okay.
but I think it's easy to say, yeah, it's a big layer cake out there. And there's something different on each layer.
All right, then a supplementary question. Are we the center of that, or are we just not in the center? We're just one layer.
Now we're just humans. We think we're the center. Uh,
Good call.
but I don't think that's the case. We just don't know. And someday we'll trip into some layer that is maybe what allows aliens to come here from many many light years away. Uh, I mean that's brought up in quantum physics a lot, string theory. Where the continuum is not straight, it's curved. And so if someone's trying to come to us from a different planetary system, they can just cut across. They don't have to follow the yellow brick road. They can
Yeah, it's
just
the
cut
old
across.
wormhole penning, pointing the
Yeah.
paper or whatever.
But
Yeah.
it's this is all theoretical, so it's hard for me to put much. I don't want to say credence into it, but I don't put a lot of expenditure into it.
No, that's
But
fair
I do
enough.
think that, but I do think we are a layer cake. That's what we're in, and people are exposed to other layers in cases like near-death experiences, or they just have their own. I mean, there's a lot of people who just have light experiences, boom, and it changes them completely. That's what's so amazing about the light that appears to people who have near-death experiences is that it's credited with healing, it's credited with psychological healing, it's credited with physical healing. What is it?
I don't know, and I wish I knew. That's why I
Yeah.
ask people this question because I want to build up a picture from what everyone says, or how they think the universe works, and then I can take everything as a conglomerate and say, right, it's this.
Well, I mean, once you get into another layer, you're then into a whole bunch of other layers. Know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, it's that onion
So
thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it just doesn't end. What did Buddhists say? It's turtles all the way down.
Yeah,
So
fractals, isn't it? The problem is
yeah,
now, Paul, right? You've mentioned cake. Now I want to
yeah,
eat a cake. Now
so
that's a
do I.
problem. So I'm going to
Yeah.
distract myself by saying we are now entering the Koit zone. Koit zone! So, like last time in the Koit zone, I asked you random questions. So let's start with a basic one. Spiders, yes or no?
Spiders.
Yeah.
Yes.
You like them, do you?
Yes. Well, they're fascinating.
They are, but they're equally creepy.
You don't touch them, you look at them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the eyes in the mirror. Don't touch your eyes.
Yeah.
What really pisses you off?
Uh, closed minds.
Nice.
That applies to many things in this country. It applies to science, it applies to politics, it applies to everything.
It applies to people, doesn't it? That's essentially what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah. Have you ever been in a fist fight?
Yes,
Did you win?
it stopped. That's the one thing
That's
I've
a
learned
no then,
about.
isn't it?
It hurts. I mean, getting hit hurts. And that's what gets me about, when you watch TV or movies now, these people are getting their heads pounded
Oh
against
God.
cement and then they get up and go have a beer. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it
But
doesn't. Tiff and I
yeah.
talk about it all the time. Like she's had a dislocated shoulder. All they do in the films is just pop it back in like that. She's saying,
Oh,
"No, you're screaming in agony for months." You
yeah,
know,
no kidding. Yeah.
sod
No,
that.
yeah.
Well, awesome. What is the worst concert you've been to?
Oh, I hate to say this, but it was the last Bob Dylan concert I saw. It was just horrible. The the
Out of tune, was he?
the music didn't change. It was just the same
Oh yeah.
music. And then he just went from one song to another, and you couldn't tell which song he was singing, couldn't understand what he was saying. And it was very depressing for me because I really admire him. So yeah, that was it. I'm sorry, Bob. It's, but
There you are, Bob. It's you. Do you wash your dirty dishes straight away, or do you leave them to pile up before sorting?
no, I put them right away into a dishwasher machine.
Good, good call. That's the
Yeah,
best way of doing it. Do you remember your old landline phone numbers from previous houses you've lived in?
I do. I do. I
Quality.
remember my one from when I was a kid. It was area code 602-278-9203.
And when you do it right, did you used to have a sing song thing? So you go 2709623. I say it in like a
No,
certain tone.
no, no.
Okay.
But there are ads here for personal attorney lawyers, and they do the sing song thing. And I think I can remember it. Yeah, they do. In fact, they're all doing the sing song thing, and it does kind of impress
Yeah, it
the
puts it
phone
in your
number in
mind.
your head a
That's
little
right.
bit. So yeah, but I can't
But you never
remember.
did it. That's fair enough. Who would you say is your favourite stand-up comedian?
Oh wow. Um, Chris Rock.
Cool. Did you enjoy it when he got slapped on stage by
It
Will?
changed him. You notice how it
Didn't it
changed him a
just?
lot?
Yeah.
Yeah, like even now, he's still not the same old guy.
That's it. Put a shockwave through his face, literally, and his
Yeah.
mind. Yeah.
Which goes back to the question about fist fights, but anyway,
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Better think twice about saying shit again. Yeah.
yeah.
Can you draw or paint?
No, no.
But you're good
I
with
can do,
words and you're good with images.
yeah, I'm not, and my mother was a very good painter. So I don't know why I didn't pick that up from
That's
her.
a shame. I don't even know if it's a learned skill either, because I think you either can or you can't with painting.
Well, if you look at families like the Wyeth family, Andrew Wyeth was a famous painter, and his kids are all painters. They all own galleries in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and so it's a big family, and they're all artists. There you go.
It's weird, isn't it? How things
Yeah.
work. Right, here's a strange one, but see if you can answer this one. I hope you do. Do you have a favorite fart story?
Fart story? Is that what you
Yeah.
said?
Yes, that's exactly what I said.
I don't, except I have fart incidents.
Go on.
My grandson loves farts. He can't talk about them enough. You know.
He's a good lad.
But the other day we had uh, a construction worker come over, a contractor to work on something, and we were outside. We were kind of by the front door, and all of a sudden he immediately lights up a cigarette, and and I said, what's going on? He said, I'm sorry, I just passed gas.
He was
And no
trying
one
to
would have
burn it off.
noticed. No one would have noticed. But anyway, that's a fart joke. I don't really have a fart joke.
It doesn't have to be a joke. I wanted that story, and you've just said it to me. I just wanted to like something that sticks in your mind, and you've given me
Yeah.
exactly what I wanted. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Um, you're offered a one-way ticket to Mars to help set up a colony there. Are you going?
Nope.
And what are your reasonings?
I like to be able to breathe in the atmosphere, and you
That's
can't
good.
really breathe up there.
That's fair. And that is the end of the Koit zone. So thank you for going through
That's
that
it?
strange journey with me. I
Okay.
always ask whenever I have one last question, and then I need to ask you one question offline if you can stay for literally 30
Sure.
seconds more. What are you currently working on? What projects on the go?
Well, I'm working on a project about visions in Egypt. Uh, for some reason, they seem to be a culture that has uh, more visions than I've ever seen, and there a lot of them are photographed and filmed. So I'm interested in that culture and the whole culture of visionary encounters. So that's what I'm working on now. Um, yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you ever so much. Paul, thank you ever so much for coming back to appear on
Yeah,
KoitCast. I really enjoyed the time together once again. I
thank
will
you.
say this. Thank you. To everyone watching and listening, check out the links in the description to Paul's sites, etc. Go and check out all the quality stuff he's got going on there. Paul, thank you ever so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks a lot.
To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.